Alrighty, guys, it's Thursday, September 3rd. So we're going to kind of close out what we've been thinking about this week with pressure and peer pressure and thinking about Gregory and Josh by doing a little writing today. Okay. So let's look at our daily task list. Pretty simple. Your 12th journal you'll do. And I just kind of want to have fun with that. I want you to write about some of your favorite movies. So just have fun with it. Tell me a little bit about what are some of your favorite films. Why do you like them? You can be as creative as you want. You can pick one or two or whatever, but I'd love to hear what kind of movies you like, and hopefully that's fun for you to write about. So write a little bit about that, be creative. And then, as you can see, we're going to do a little writing. So let me introduce you our writing for today. Your third step is simply to look back at the great writing example I showed you last week, if you would like, because we're going to write paragraphs again today, but next week we're going to move into writing longer writing like essays. So let's look back one more time. This is that great paragraph that a former student had written about this infographic that talked about how social media, like Facebook and Twitter, are being used less by the younger generations. And if you remember, two things we liked about this were we liked his creative opening, the way that he was creative, and then we also liked his use of evidence. So if you remember, he had a creative opening sentence. He started with this phrase: Facebook's funeral will be held in 2020 when it's completely dead to the younger generation. So what I really love about that is the way he immediately gets me interested in his writing. He's only writing a paragraph to summarize the information, but he still wrote in a creative and interesting way. He used figurative language, right? Facebook isn't really dead. It's simply less popular. So if you would like to use figurative language and be creative, please do, because it keeps us as the reader interested. The other thing we loved here was that he used evidence. He talked about according to the infographic. So maybe in your case, you might say, for instance, in the story, and then quote something from something you read. But this student used evidence from the infographic, like only 6% of teens said Twitter or Facebook was their favorite. That came straight out of this graph. You can see, like, here's the 6% there and there. However, today, maybe your writing comes from, excuse me, maybe your evidence in your writing comes from the Long Way Down passage that we read about Gregory trying to get a date, or the passage from The Crossover where the boy gets his nickname. So try to use some evidence in your writing. And now let's look at your actual writing assignment. It's writing day number 2, and we're talking about influences and pressures. So you write 2 paragraphs, one for each of these questions. Like last week, you have the great example if you want to see it, and here's the readings this should be based on. Already read this week about Gregory trying to get a date and Josh earning his nickname. And here's the 2 questions to write about. Number 1, explain similarities and differences between the way the characters in our readings this week, so Gregory and Josh, respond to pressure from family and friends. So what I'd like you to do is write a little bit about, do you feel like Gregory and Josh responded similarly or differently to the pressures they faced, and just explain that. Try to use evidence from both stories. Number 2, using this week's readings as evidence, explain whether pressure from friends and family can be positive, negative, or a mixture of both. So maybe think about, is what Gregory's dealing with positive or negative? Is what Josh is dealing with positive or negative? And use those as examples from the text to talk about, can peer pressure and pressure from family be good, bad, or maybe somewhere in between? So I want to see creative, thoughtful answers, not just simple, obvious answers. So as you write a paragraph for each, use the readings and the example paragraph if you would like. I look forward to reading them. If you have a question, email me or use the class question board. Do great writing, and good luck.